All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Tea Time with Lady D. My name is Deveva, and I want to introduce you to our special guest, Fiona Sherlock. Thank you so much for joining us from across the pond. You are our first guest joining us from Ireland. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I know that it's close to 9 o'clock your time. So um, thank you for that. I just wanted to first, I'm a little bit nervous because I have been following you online and I found you through Etsy. So I wanted to share that part of how we got connected. And then from after that point, I just want you to talk about all of the projects you've done and the things that you're working on now. And you're also having your second baby due any week now. So you have a lot going on.
For sure. I'm happy
Um,
to be with you here, Ziva. The Irish love to drink tea, and it can often fall into the realm of the ordinary tea that everybody just tends to drink the same tea. So that's why I really enjoy your blog and your work, so that people can really enjoy ceremony of having tea again. So thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. And that was one thing we had talked about. So let me just share first that I had found you on Etsy because with Elder Street Tea Shop, we started doing some murder mystery teas. So I was trying to think of different themes, and that's where I found you. And I think there were several accounts that had them, but yours, I love like the graphics and the different options, and a lot of times it's hard to find downloads that are up to 20 characters. And so we weren't sure when we did it how many we were going to have that wanted to participate as characters. So that's why we said, okay, the max for the place is 30 people. So definitely um, we're assuming up to 20, and we've probably had up to 13. So we based our Miss Fisher murder mystery, and then this year we're going to be doing the Mad Men Tea Party. So we're super excited about that. So that's how we connected. And I think last year, how was your daughter's tea party? I think you said you were going to do one for her.
We did for her second birthday party. We had a tea party, and I was a little bit concerned about giving China to toddlers, but it seemed to work.
Mm-hmm.
And they all enjoyed their. I didn't give them tea though. Caffeine was a step too far.
Yeah.
So they just had some nice kombucha and homemade kombucha, and they all had a great time. And they all were saying cheers with one another. So it was
Yeah.
great. It was a great idea because it all of the kids had their own stations, so it meant that everyone had like their space at the table. Otherwise, it's very hard to get toddlers to sit down together for any kind of event.
Right.
It worked really well.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the questions you had asked, like, would it be okay to use china or just paper or plastic? And I told you, even the age of 2, I think it was last spring that I had my first birthday party for a 2-year-old, and it's just amazing. I mean, it's a shorter amount of time than an older child, but they'll actually sit there, and I've even noticed like they'll sit up front and they'll actually drink for a little while from the teacup.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I thought it was really cute. So did you do a craft with them too, or it was just kind of
I
tea
got
time?
I got 10, maybe 15 minutes of some nice friendly chat out of them, and then it was crazy time. Yeah, I didn't get a comment in there, but I'm hoping
Yeah.
third birthday that I don't know, depending on how out of lockdown we are, her birthday's in a few months, that we might be able to have something similar with a longer attention span.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. As long as you can get pictures in, a birthday cake and happy birthday, that's all like, that you need for now at this age. So,
Exactly.
well, I'm glad it turned out well. That was really fun. Um, So let's see. So it started with the murder mysteries that are the downloads on Etsy, and from there on, I was following your page, and I saw that you had wrote a book after you had had your daughter, and you also do some short mystery stories on different local newspapers. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I have a few different things on the go. I suppose ultimately I've always been a writer, and I've been writing stories since I was like 3 or 4 or 5. And a lot of people say that if if you're a writer, you can't help yourself but write, because everybody knows like there's no job security, there's no path to financial freedom when you're a
Yeah.
writer, that it's a compulsion. But I've been lucky that I've always been able to, I suppose, use my writing in like a professional environment. So I worked in PR, in public relations, and in journalism for a few years. And then the Murder Mysteries came about because my husband and I decided to host one, and we just couldn't find one that we liked. We found that we wanted to have a big group. So as you mentioned, a lot of time the games had quite small number of characters, and I just didn't like the storyline, so I wrote one myself. And then just friends of friends asked me if they could borrow it or if they could use it, and I got great feedback. So I said, hey, why don't I just throw some of these up online and see how they go? So that was 2016 on Etsy. So I started on Etsy, and so that was one game. I now have about 15 different games,
Yeah.
sorts of different themes, from like magical Harry Potter themes to the classic sort of Downton Abbey, Agatha Christie themes, and everything in between. So it's really gone from one one little idea and one little house party we had when we were house sitting to like a kind of a busy side project for sure. And things have gotten very busy in the last few weeks, as when we're stuck in lockdown, people seem to like to have an excuse to dress up on the weekends.
Yeah.
So the murder mysteries have translated well
Right.
to Zoom calls. So I'm definitely busy with that. And then I suppose the traditional writer, everyone wants to have their book done and their book published. So there's
Yeah.
a hang up about the book, whether you're going to reach more people through creating murder mysteries and give people a good experience that way versus somebody who's going to read your book on their own. So it's a different sort of product, I guess. And
Hmm.
so I just signed a 3-book deal with the Irish publisher here. It's like a quirky murder mystery. So my plan is to have a murder mystery game available for people to play the same time the book is out. So it's out next spring. And yeah, so I have some side projects where I write short stories and poetry as well. So lots on the go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I especially now that I don't know, in Ireland if it's the same as I live in Virginia, but all over the states is kind of a little bit different. It's not across the board. So a lot of people have been, those projects of writing or doing things around the house or maybe studying, going back to school, that sort of thing. Um, sorry, that they are working on those things now. So I did see that you have the deal for the three. So it's 3 novels that you're going to be doing.
3 detective books, exactly.
I love it. Yeah. So what got you started on like murder mysteries? Is that something that you've always, intrigued to or drawn to?
I suppose I think, quite a mathematical mind, and I enjoy how murder mysteries tend to, in some ways, be quite formulaic in that there's a clear pattern, and like the moving pieces can kind of the characters and their motives and their means and opportunities all are constantly moving in your mind as a reader or a viewer or whatever. If you're watching Agatha Christie or Murder She Wrote, Jessica Fletcher,
Yeah.
you're always it's always moving pieces and moving parts, and that kind of motion I've always enjoyed with murder mysteries. I don't know if you can see, but so I'm just working on a new game at the minute, and this is how I plan
Uh,
all of my
like your
plots
characters and
and
things.
strategies and who's going to be where and when and why. So I really enjoy putting it together like that, and I think Agatha Christie obviously is the queen of murder mysteries, and she's been so stylish, and her characters are so rich in texture, and the costumes in the
I know.
like they're out of this world. So
Yeah, I always say when we watch the TV show, we haven't seen the movie yet, but if you just put a still pause on each scene, it's like a something that you could frame. It's just like artwork.
the cinematography is always with it.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah, all the characters are really good on that show.
yeah, and that's
Um
when I think about the 3 book series that's going to start with the book called Preserved. I suppose I don't know anyone who would write murder mysteries who couldn't be inspired by Agatha Christie or Sherlock Holmes. But my protagonist, January is her name. She is. You would love to talk to her. Actually, she
yeah.
loves. She loves her tea, but she's very much a creature of the past. So as much as the story Preserved is about a murder that she's trying to solve, it's as much about her own situation that she's trying to kind of unravel.
Mm.
So she's very stuck in the past, won't use a mobile phone, won't use a laptop, carries brandy around with her, drinks, smokes cigarettes. She's very and not very PC. And I think those characters are important that they're not very realistic because you want a bit of escapism. So
Exactly.
I think that's what people. I think that's why people are even playing murder mysteries now because you get to like forget that you're mommy on duty and put some red lipstick on and pour yourself a martini and play like Lady Stack Allen from Stack Allen Castle and talk about all of your affairs and your stolen divinity
Yeah.
and all of that. And I think that escapism really is at the root of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of so especially around Halloween, like I love that day and leading up to it because it's just being able to be somebody else or being character for that one day. So also with the tea parties, I mean, obviously I love hosting them and just buying outfits and dressing up, just that whole experience. Like I love all of that. And so now being home all of these weeks, my kids, I mean, it's been 5 years now, but the dressing up part has probably been the past 2, 3 years. That when they see me, I have all boys, like it's kind of the norm. I mean, I don't dress like this every day, but they already know, like, oh, she's getting ready to do a virtual tea, or before she's like, oh, she's getting ready to go host a tea, like it's the norm now.
It's so funny because I'm sure they're not shocked to see you at all. The same when my husband saw me come down from putting the baby to sleep, he didn't say like, "What are you doing?" Like, what?
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, you have that call tonight, don't you?" So,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's fun to find a bit of enjoyment in that and that's one thing that we have. We have access to our wardrobes in our homes, and it's amazing the feedback I've had from people who've been playing murder mystery games is the stuff that people are pulling out of their wardrobes. All the guys have their tuxedos, or they might have their suits, or
Yeah.
Al Capone suspenders, and girls have like Gatsby-esque wardrobes and all sorts of different like glamorous clothes
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, so on Etsy, so you have what you had before the downloads, but you also have versions, right? That you can do the Zoom version, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
most of the games actually work very well over Zoom, and I have a guide to hosting over Zoom, and I'm kind of talking people through different games. But the 3 most popular Zoom games are The Great Has Been, which is kind of a mashup between The Great Gatsby and Murder on the Orient Express. So it's like your ultimate 1920s themed party. So that's
Yeah.
here at the minute, and it's really flexible in terms of numbers, and there's evidence that people can get through like email or WhatsApp. That's popular. Also, the Wizard's Dagger. It's a teen-friendly game, so there's no affairs, there's no people falling over drunk, there's no
Okay.
pot smoking in it. It's all teen. And that's set in a magical wizarding world. So that I wrote that really for fans of Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and those kind of sci-fi magical show. So that's very popular, especially for families who might want to play with kids as well, or might have kids there that they want to include them. And then I have my classic Murder at Stackallan Castle. So that is your typical Downton Abbey, Agatha Christie style, but it's set in an Irish castle. So,
Okay, of course.
yeah.
Very nice. So, were you born in Ireland and that's where you've been living all your life, or were you born somewhere else?
No, I was born here. I was born just up the road. I live I lived in Dublin for a few years, and I just moved home basically to where my family have lived for like 300 years.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
so it's strange from the anonymity of a big city to living somewhere where people knew my granddad, or worked with my dad, or things like that. So I live in a really historic part of Meath, just outside Dublin, and there's a beautiful old ruined abbey that's from the 12th century. So it's
Wow.
a beautiful view, and I get to look over the river. It's a very inspiring place. I think there's quite a kind of a nice high energy here.
Yeah.
So we're really lucky. It's a great place to be isolated, I guess.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I've my friend, she's half Irish, and she went probably 3 years ago was the last time that she went with her fiance back then, and now it's her husband, and she just the pictures were glorious. Because you always think of different, where they enhance the coloring, like Paul Dark. Like I heard that area is really gray and is not as green as they make it look. But yeah, it was beautiful. I guess it's with all the rain that there's so much lush greens, in the meadows and things, right?
And also the abbey beside us, Bective Abbey, it's super popular with tourists. So, pre-isolation days when it's open, my daughter and I go up there almost every day. So she likes to crawl around the room. But nearly every day we would meet like a busload of tourists from the States who were coming
Yeah,
to.
that.
And so we were talking to people constantly all the time and telling them about the history of the area. And it's amazing, like that it's an old place for us, but it was great to have it here so that it's so close. Um,
Yeah.
Still an hour from Dublin, so that's pretty.
Oh, okay. So that's not far, right? An hour. Like usually around here, I live in Northern Virginia. The norm is 45 minutes to get anywhere. There's so much traffic.
Sure. And are you noticing that there's less traffic on the roads at the minute?
Yeah, yeah. I actually haven't been working, but my husband and my mom, they're still working. They notice there's a lot less traffic. A lot of people are working from home or, just staying home right now. So we're hoping that it won't last. I mean, I'm assuming maybe through summer, but hopefully not into fall when school starts again because it's going to get really challenging to start a new year um, with distance learning.
Yeah.
So,
Because
yeah,
you're homeschooling essentially your boys.
pretty much. Yeah. I mean, I'm not taking credit for it because, but they're doing assignments and things online, and then the teachers are going live with them too.
They also need snacks all the time, and they also.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I have never, because I've always worked outside the home. So now I'm constantly, only when there's the classes. So Monday through Thursday, um, breakfast, lunch, dinner. I'm just like constantly cooking and washing. I'm like, yeah, I think I prefer just working outside of the home.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
it's a lot. Like I have a nanny who usually minds my daughter, so would mind her usually 4 days a week. But obviously she's not able to do that at the minute. And sorry, I just in my laptop. Um, she's not able to do that at the minute. So it means that my writing time is severely diminished because my husband's very busy at his
yeah.
job. He works in finance, and they work a lot with the government.
Mhm.
So I used to get up at like 5 a.m. to write before when I worked in PR, but yeah, with a few weeks to go on this baby, those 5 a.m. starts just aren't.
No.
anymore.
No, you're probably exhausted because it gets really difficult at night to find a good position to sleep in. I bet you're at that point.
I think I have about pillows on the go at the minute, but
Yeah, yep, from one side to the next.
we're all
So,
happy, and that's part and parcel of it. So, um, yeah. So at least my friend was joking. She was like, "You're gonna have a third baby to uh to give your acknowledgement of the third."
like, yeah, that's not the time to think about a third one right now.
Not quite yet, but
Yeah.
it's been great because I do actually find then when I do have some time to work, then I get super productive.
Mhm.
And I guess it's like Boyle's law that the less time you have, the more efficient you're going to be. I've definitely found that to be
Right.
true. But I'm definitely keeping my notebook by my side. I'm definitely cooking up a lot of new stories and new plots and
Yeah.
like that. But you wonder like um how this whole situation is going to play out in the future in literature and
Right.
are we going to just want to forget about it and not even acknowledge it? Or are there going to be so many cliches that we just don't want to think about it? Or, yeah, is it going to be the new norm? Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. I feel, really bad for those that picked this year for weddings. Weddings is probably the big thing.
Yeah.
Because, that's always going to be that year 2020. Just remember it for so many different things now. So just two more questions before we finish our tea. I didn't get to ask you, what tea are you drinking today?
Mac and tea, fine tea. So this is an Irish tea masters, and
Okay.
I love loose tea because I love the ritual of putting it in the pot and allowing it to brew.
Mhm.
And now that I write and I work from home all the time, I actually get the luxury of getting to take a proper tea break. So
Right.
I just love this particular blend. It is a classic blend, but apart from that, I quite like Assam and I quite like other kind of astringent blends. Um,
Mhm.
I'm trying to monitor my caffeine intake at the minute, but definitely one nice cup of tea in the morning really makes all the difference. I've also
Yeah.
to brew some kombucha, but I've been using red raspberry leaf tea, and they say that that can be good at the latter stages of pregnancy to
Oh.
uterine tone. So, but also there's no caffeine in it, so I can give it to my daughter.
Oh, right, right. So you both can. She's probably the age where she wants to drink everything that you're drinking.
Exactly, and
So.
it's like all the sugar that goes into it gets eaten up in the fermentation process. So it's actually like a
Uh,
reasonably healthy drink. But I do always love the routine of tea drinking
mhm.
and that little clink of the saucer.
Yeah. Sorry.
And
Yeah.
even though I'm Irish and not English, obviously nearly everything to do with drinking tea in Ireland comes probably from the British. But I'm interested to see if you've ever heard anything about this. So there's kind of always a little bit of controversy over whether somebody should put the milk into their cup first
Mhm.
or secondly. So some people say that only poor people would put their milk into their cup first because it meant that they were trying to save their cup from cracking. But then other
Mhm.
people would say that it was actually the aristocracy who put milk into their china first to again to save the cup from the trauma of the heat.
Yeah.
Two totally different perspectives, and I kind of think that that might be to do with the timing thing. That maybe initially the china did need to be warmed up. But I don't know, did you ever come across any conversation?
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't think here. I mean, unless you really look into tea and that sort of thing, people honestly don't even realize that about the two. Do you put it on top or on the bottom? But one thing that I'll always say is because of the cracking on the bottom, but I didn't realize, but it probably is that the different time. But there's two main things that we do a lot of here in the States is that we call afternoon tea high tea, which is not correct.
Yeah, well, we
Um,
tea is like 6 o'clock, kind of your supper nearly.
Right, right. But since the word high tea sounds fancier, that's what everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people will say, oh,
Sure.
we're having a high, a bridal high tea, or, so that I think a lot of people get confused with that. And then also the pinkies up and pinkies down. So overall, I've heard it is not proper to have your pinky up, correct?
Yeah, I tend to agree.
Yeah, so over here in the States, people think that, well, not people, but a lot of people think it is fancy to have your pinky up, which is actually not correct.
Yeah, I guess no, just yeah, I think it's keep it down. That's
Yeah.
more natural for sure.
Yeah, so the pinky up concept was, well, not concept, but when the teacup and saucer, when they first were introduced from the Orient, they did not have a handle. So when you're holding it, automatically your pinky does go up to balance. So I think that's what the pinky up started. And there was so many things I read, like ladies of the night used to signal with the pinky up, or different things like that.
Sure.
So I've always said it's actually not pinkies up, it's always pinkies down. So those are the two big things. I think milk doesn't even come into play. Like that's like way over our heads over here.
But it's nice to have all those little kind of little pieces of the past, and the little routine
Yeah.
there. I
Yeah, and the gentlemen love tea parties also. It's not just for the ladies.
sure, and I always get kind of flustered in super fancy 5-star hotels here. If you order a cup of tea, like there's so much equipment comes with it because you've got your teacup and your saucer obviously, but you have your like tea strainer and the tea strainers set.
Yeah, say hi to Chloe.
Hi,
She
Chloe.
seems to always want to join us for the tea party lately. But yeah, there is all of these pieces like the strainer. I mean, I do love, so a lot of times people will ask like the different trios, and usually I'll just do a duo set and then put a white like dessert plate underneath to make the trio. Just because it makes the teacups pop, because a lot of mine are like mismatched vintage teacups.
Sure.
But also you don't want to travel with your really, I mean, I guess expensive or rare, because you're packing them, you're repacking them. So during the transport, you want to make sure that they're secure. So a lot of times when go to different tea rooms, and we have some hotels too, that it's so much easier just to not have to pack everything, that everything is right there.
Sure, absolutely.
So that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So one last question I wanted to ask. So for someone that's aspiring to start writing or doing short stories or novels, how do you, where do you suggest to kind of start? If that's something that you'd like to start doing.
Yeah, so I guess I would say just start. That's it.
Yeah. And then you just submit your stories to the papers or to a publisher for
Yeah,
them to look at, or
I think the biggest thing with writing is just to get some words on the page, and just get the words on the page, and just silence the inner critic and the inner editor. You get one, you start with a word, then you get a sentence, then you get a paragraph, and then you get like the full page. And you'll know when you get to a certain point in it. It could be a page in, oh yeah, okay, I'll write a story. Or it could be like 4 pages in, or you could write start and finish and stop and start loads of times. But eventually you will figure out what it is that you're writing and what it is that you want to say.
say, yeah.
So I would just say start, and I say it to myself every single day, because there's times where I'm like, oh, well, I go in here and like make that change to that story, or will I write that fire story or whatever, and I get so wrapped up in what am I going to write today that I just have to say sit down and start writing.
Yeah.
And yeah, and just keep writing and make a routine of it. I found Stephen King wrote an amazing book about writing.
Oh, okay.
He kind of advocated writing 1,000 words a day for 6 days a week. That's quite a commitment, but like people can find their own commitments. People might say, okay, I'm going to write for an hour once a week, or whatever it is. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is to start thinking of yourself as a writer. you're not pretending to be a writer. You're not starting out to be a writer. You're not trying to be a writer. You are a writer.
Oh, that's a nice way of putting it. Yeah, very
Because
nice.
writing is only really self-belief and commitment. And apart from that, like a lot of people aren't even technically, aren't very technically skilled writers, but are very successful.
Yeah, yeah, because then that's when you get the editor to do it for you, right? To kind of clean it up at some point.
And things like, oh, I don't want to get in trouble for saying this, but some people did say that, say, like 50 Shades of Grey mightn't have been as technically or skilled writing as others, but it's still very successful. A lot of people enjoyed that story and continue to enjoy that story. And I mean, isn't that what it's all about?
What it's all about. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about because I hadn't read the novel, but a lot of people had said that it wasn't written well. But obviously, the movies they were successful when they were out. So let's see what time. So let me ask you just one quick question. Have you seen Derby Girls?
I haven't. I haven't.
So it's on Netflix and it's based in Ireland. And I don't know if it's in Dublin, but it's the funniest show.
Derry Girls.
Derry Girls. Sorry, I keep on saying Derby.
Derry Girls is hilarious. And as
Yeah.
a child of the 90s,
Yeah.
think hilarious. Obviously, I grew up in the south of the border, so we didn't have the same sorts of things that those girls were faced with. So, like, we didn't have checkpoints, we didn't have, an army presence on the streets, and we weren't divided. We weren't a divided community. But, we definitely had the same stories with the Spice Girls and house parties in streets.
Yeah.
I love Derry Girls. I really do.
I know. We just found it recently, like 2 months ago, and it was hilarious. In the beginning, we always watch our shows, doesn't matter from what country, with the subtitles, because sometimes you'll miss something. But in the beginning, like my husband and I were having a hard time understanding their accents, but towards the end, we're totally fine.
I tell you, the Derry accent can be one that can be hard to follow for sure. Even it takes me a while to kind of get used to it. But I love that show, and I do think that they've done an amazing job at tracking like the impact that living through that time actually had on day-to-day life. So as much as it's hilarious and so well written, so funny, that it doesn't. I think it does justice to that time as well, and I think a lot of people who lived through that time in Derry would kind of agree with that.
Yeah, definitely for us over here, that's something that obviously we would hear about, but just the impact and how the lifestyle was there, and there's all of those different areas. So yeah, it definitely was eye opening to me, and I like the age group too, because I was also from the '90s. So just it's all. I mean, I can't even imagine just the environment and being in that adolescent age. It's already so complicated back then too, during that time. So yeah, it's a great show. So for those of you watching, if you haven't seen it, it's on Netflix. It's a good show. Good laugh. So, well, thank you, Fiona, so much for joining me. I am so happy. I said, you know what? I'm just going to reach out. And if she says yes, it'll be amazing. But if she doesn't, I totally understand. So I will let you know when we do the Mad Men, and I will put a shout out to you. And I wish you all the best with your. Are you having a boy or girl, or are you waiting till?
That would be telling. That would be telling. It's a tough.
Okay. Well, we'll find out. Hopefully, you'll put a post out there on your author page. So
absolutely. So many people can't meet this baby for God knows how long. So
yeah,
it'll be serious.
Yeah. Well, at least those first 3-4 months you were planning to be home anyway. So
yeah, it was very.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And
all right, thank you, and wish you all the best with the baby, and congratulations with all of the novels and things. I'm definitely going to purchase them, and then maybe you can sign it for me.
Absolutely. Maybe you come to Ireland to the book launch.
I know, it'd be great. I finally get to, if I go back to England, I'll try my best to do a stop by. All right, take care, Fiona. Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.